Okay, so we're diving into this whole W-4 thing.
Right.
And honestly, even I'm a little lost. Mother may I CUP.
Yes.
Like taxes and contracts and credit, and maybe even a little bit of like rebellion against the system.
It's a lot to unpack for sure.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating how all these sources tie together, like everyday stuff.
Right.
Jobs and bills, even like birth certificates.
Yeah.
And they weave it into this whole like intricate financial web.
So it's like we're all in this giant financial game,
Yeah.
but no one gave us the rule book.
Exactly.
Okay, so can we learn to play the game better?
That's what these sources seem to suggest.
I am so ready.
Yeah.
Because one of the sources even mentions this thing.
Oh, interesting one. And that goes all the way back to the Great Fire of London in 1666. It actually led to this whole legal framework for like stuff after all the devastation. And the sources argue that this framework still like impacts us today.
Okay, so they're saying that a fire in 1666 is somehow connected to how we deal with like corporations and the government today.
Yeah, that's the claim.
That's wild.
For the long game.
Okay, so how does the W-4 fit into all of this?
The W-4, we usually just think about it during tax season, right?
Yeah.
Tell your employer how much to withhold from your paycheck.
Right.
But these sources propose a totally different way to use it.
Oh.
They suggest you can leverage the W-4 to report withheld credit.
Withheld credit.
Yeah, and potentially reclaim money from all sorts of entities like corporations and government agencies.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
They call it the W-4 sandwich process.
The sandwich.
Yeah.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Tell me more about this W-4 sandwich.
All right, so the sandwich, it involves combining the W-4 form with other documents.
Okay.
Specifically, the 1040 tax return and the 1040V payment voucher. And according to the sources, you submit these forms together along with receipts and other documentation, and it allows you to basically audit companies and agencies and highlight their use of your credit.
Hold on, my credit. How are they using my credit?
Well, they claim that this credit is inherently linked to your social security number.
My credit is linked to my social security number.
That's what they say.
Okay, I've never heard that before. How does that work?
They explain it this way. Every time you apply for something, a job, a credit card, a utility account, you're essentially issuing a letter of credit.
A letter of credit.
Almost like a mini loan.
Okay.
And they argue that your social security number is like the collateral backing this credit.
Okay.
And corporations and agencies, they use this credit to access funds, and they're supposed to report this to the IRS and pay taxes on it.
So they're saying that companies are profiting off of my credit, but I don't see any of that money.
Yeah, that's a bold statement.
That's bold.
And it gets even bolder.
Okay, lay it on me.
They argue that by using this W-4 sandwich process, you can assess the value of this credit and potentially get a portion of it back through a tax return or refund.
Okay. Mother may I CUP. You're blowing my mind a little bit here.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah. If companies are tapping into my credit, shouldn't I be seeing some benefit from that?
They suggest the benefit comes in the form of goods and services that we get from these companies.
Okay.
Like they say, when you use electricity, you're essentially paying with credit linked to your social security number.
Right.
The electric company uses that credit to like cover their costs and generate profits.
Right.
And they're supposed to report this to the IRS as taxable income.
So they're making money off of my credit, but I'm the one paying the electric bill.
That's how they frame it.
Okay, so they're saying I'm unknowingly funding these corporations with my credit.
That's the claim.
And I can use this W-4 process to hold them accountable.
Exactly. They emphasize understanding how the system works and using the right tools.
Right.
In this case, the W-4 sandwich to like assert your rights.
Okay. But the W-4 is usually for employment.
Right.
Tied to like utility companies or credit card companies.
So the concept of de facto employment comes in.
De facto employment.
Yeah. Okay.
So the sources, they argue that anytime a company requires you to do something under their policy, like wear a mask in their store,
Okay.
you become a de facto employee for that interaction.
So if a store says wear a mask and I put on a mask, I'm their employee.
That's the gist of it.
Okay.
You, even if it's just symbolic.
They should be paying me for wearing a mask.
That's the idea. Oh, you can report this withheld payment on the W-4.
Okay. I'm going to need a minute to process this.
Sure.
So they're saying that every time I interact with a corporation or a government agency, it's like a financial transaction.
Yeah, That's the key takeaway.
And I'm usually on the losing end of that transaction without even realizing it.
That's what they suggest.
Okay, so how do I use this W-4 sandwich process to like turn things around? Well, it's not as simple as just filling out a W-4 and mailing it to the electric company.
Right, I figured.
But the sources do lay out specific steps for filling out the forms, what supporting documents to include, and where to send everything.
Okay.
And importantly, they emphasize that you don't send the W-4 to the company itself.
Okay.
You send it to the IRS as a report of withheld credit.
Oh, so it's like I'm using the IRS to put pressure on these companies.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a little sneaky.
It is.
Also sounds a little risky. What are some of the downsides?
Yeah, there are definitely potential. They mention things like misunderstandings about legal terminology mistakes in the filing procedures, and even the possibility of unwanted attention from government agencies.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so they caution against making like frivolous claims or exaggerating the value.
Can you walk me through the steps?
Sure, they outline the three-step process.
Oh.
First, the statement. You identify the contract or agreement that forms the basis of your claim.
Okay.
This could be a credit card application, a utility bill, even that mask policy we talked about.
Okay, so that's step one.
Step two, the notice.
The notice.
This is where the W-4 comes in.
Okay.
You fill it out in a specific way, indicating the amount of withheld credit you're claiming and identifying the company as your employer for that transaction.
Okay, so I'm basically saying they're my employer, even though they're not.
Yeah, for the purpose. Gathering supporting documentation like receipts, statements, copies of the original contracts.
Okay.
And the 1040 and 1040V forms are used to direct the IRS to audit the company and recoup credit.
So each layer of sandwich has a purpose.
Yeah.
The statement lays out the claim, the notice alerts the IRS, and the proof backs it all up. Okay. Okay, but how do you actually fill out these forms? What specific information do you need?
Well, the sources provide detailed instructions on filling out each form, but they stress being precise and consistent.
Okay.
For example, they emphasize using your full legal name, writing out state names instead of abbreviations, and even using specific language in the memo lines of checks and money orders.
So there's very little room for error.
Right. They emphasize dotting your I's and crossing your T's.
Because any inconsistency could invalidate my claim.
Exactly.
So it's not just about the numbers, it's also about presentation and legal language.
Precisely. They argue that by paying attention to these details, you're showing that you understand the system and making it harder for the other party to dismiss your claim.
Okay, this is starting to make more sense, but what are some of the most surprising or unusual things you found in these sources?
One of the most striking claims is that the IRS is a foreign entity and that the tax system as it's currently implemented doesn't have jurisdiction over individuals.
Oh, hold on, are they saying we can stop paying taxes?
No, not at all.
Okay,
They're simply highlighting the complexity of the tax system and suggesting there are ways to navigate it more effectively by understanding its underlying principles.
okay, so it's about knowing my rights and
Yeah.
using the system to my advantage, not about tax evasion.
Exactly. They advocate for breaking the law.
Okay, good. I like that knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
And these sources seem to be all about empowering individuals of their finances.
Yeah.
And challenge this well.
Right.
But they also seem to suggest that this W-4 process can be used for more than just recouping credit for corporations.
All right.
Some sources mention things like student loans and child support payments.
Yeah.
How does that work?
They argue that the same principles apply to any situation where a contractual obligation is backed by your social security number.
Okay.
They even mention using this process to challenge traffic tickets and other fines.
Wow, so it's like a universal tool for challenging any financial obligation.
That's how they present it.
That's a pretty big claim.
It is.
What evidence do they have to support that?
Well, they cite a range of legal cases, statutes, and codes,
Okay.
including the Uniform Commercial Code Title 18 of the U.S. Code and various sections of the Internal Revenue Code.
So they did the research.
Yeah, they've definitely done their homework.
Okay. But they also admit that there's risk involved, right?
Absolutely.
I could get audited or even face legal action if I mess up.
Not sugarcoating the potential risks.
Okay.
They emphasize proceeding, cautiously doing your research, and seeking legal counsel if necessary.
Bullet. but a potential tool for those willing to put in the time and effort.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to get the big picture now, but let's get back to the specifics of how this applies to utilities and terminations. I'm really curious about that.
So let's dive into those specifics.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so we're diving into the W-4 itself, the heart of the sandwich.
Okay, break it down. Mother CUPP. What do I need to know?
So they call this part the state claim, like the foundation.
Makes sense. So what are the key ingredients?
A few crucial areas. First, your personal info, full legal name, no initials.
God.
Current address spelled out completely. And we even have a specific format for the zip code, put in brackets.
Brackets. Okay, interesting. So it sounds like attention to detail is super important here.
Yeah.
What about filing status, single, married, all that?
They recommend leaving that blank.
Blank.
Yeah, their logic is your filing status, like as an individual, it's irrelevant here.
Okay.
Because in this process, you're acting as a creditor, not an employee.
Oh, okay. So we're for the script.
Exactly.
I'm not an employee. I'm a creditor coming to collect.
That's the idea.
I like it. Okay, what about allowances?
Put zero.
Zero. Okay.
Logic is you're not claiming any allowances because you're not an employee.
Okay, so far so good.
Yeah.
But the real meat of this sandwich seems to be, line 6.
Right.
Additional amount to be withheld. That's where we put the money we want back, right?
Exactly. That's where you put the dollar figure for the withheld recoup.
Okay.
And they give different methods for calculating this depending on what kind of account or transaction it is.
Right, we talked about some of that earlier, like adding up all your utility payments or claiming the credit limit on a closed credit card. I'm not sure about the exact amount.
Yeah. A precise number sometimes.
Right.
So they suggest if you're missing info, you can actually leave line 6 blank.
Really?
Yeah. And let the IRS figure it out during the audit.
So the IRS does the math for me.
That's the idea. They claim the IRS has access to all the financial data anyway, so they can calculate.
Strategy. Okay.
They're using exempt in a different way here. I'm not saying you're exempt from all taxes,
Right.
but exempt from the normal holding process.
Yeah.
Their argument is, since you're a creditor in these deals,
Okay. I'm seeing how they're like bending the rules a bit, using the forms in a way they weren't meant for.
right, it's creative.
Okay. They also say it's important to sign with a specific disclaimer. What's that about?
Yeah, they want you to add done in good faith, authorized representative, all rights reserved, right next to your signature.
What's the point of all that?
They say it clarifies your intent and protects you legally.
Okay, so it's like extra legal protection on the sandwich.
Yeah, like a seal of approval.
Okay, so our W-4 statement is done. What's the next layer?
Next up is the 1040 form.
The 1040. Isn't that what we use to file our taxes every year?
Yeah, but they call it the return in this context.
The return. So instead of reporting income, we're demanding credit. Fill out the 1040 for this.
Again, we've got specific instructions highlighting certain sections. Like make sure to use your full legal name and address, just like on the W-4. And then other sections you leave blank, like the income and deduction parts.
Okay.
Because you're not reporting income or claiming deductions here.
So we're giving the 1040 a makeover, stripping it down to the basics.
Exactly. Focusing only on what's relevant to the withheld credit.
Okay, makes sense. We also mentioned putting bank info in the 1040. Why is that?
That's where the 1040V comes in, the final layer of the sandwich.
Okay.
It's the payment voucher that tells the IRS to send you the money.
So we're basically telling them where to send the check.
And you're making it clear you want a refund or direct deposit.
Makes sense. What about the 1040V itself? Do we need to fill that out in a special way?
Take instructions for that too.
Mhm.
Put your social security number, full legal name and address, and the total amount of withheld credit you're claiming,
Okay.
which should match what you put on line 6 of the W-4.
So everything needs to match up perfectly.
Exactly. Consistency is key. They're creating a clear paper trail to connect your claim to the company you're targeting.
Okay, so we've got our 3 layers: W-4 statement, 1040 return, and 1040V voucher. Good. Which needs filling, right? What else goes in this packet?
That's where the proof comes in.
The proof.
You need supporting docs to back up your claim,
Mhm.
receipts, statements, copies of contracts,
Okay.
anything that shows the financial transaction and the use of your credit. Send copies, not originals, and organize them neatly.
Like a little case file.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're saying clear and compelling evidence strengthens your claim.
Mother may I CUP. This is a lot of financial detective.
Yeah, it takes some investigation, but the sources say the rewards are worth it.
Okay, so our sandwich is assembled. Fillings are in place. What now? Where do we send this thing?
They give a specific address. The Department of the Treasury's remittance office. Right.
Interesting. Why the treasury?
They don't say explicitly. They say the Treasury is the ultimate source of credit.
But
by sending it there, you might bypass the IRS.
Back and wait for a big check.
Not quite. They say it takes time, wins, maybe even months. There's no guarantee of success.
Right.
The IRS might reject your claim, ask for more docs, or even audit you.
So it's a gamble.
Yeah, they're upfront about the risks.
Right.
This is complex, and the outcome's not guaranteed.
Okay. But let's say the IRS does. What happens then?
So it should match
Perfectly.
exactly. Consistency is key. They're creating a clear paper trail to connect your claim to the company you're targeting.
Okay, so we've got our 3 layers: W-4 statement, 1040 return, and 1040V voucher. But a sandwich needs filling, right? What else goes in this packet?
That's where the proof comes in.
The proof.
You need supporting docs to back up your claim,
Mhm.
receipts, statements, copies of contracts,
Okay.
anything that shows the financial transaction and the use of your credit.
Okay.
Send copies, not originals, and organize them neatly.
Like a little case file.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're saying clear and compelling evidence strengthens your claim.
May I CUP? This is a lot of work.
It is.
I'm starting to feel like a financial detective.
Yeah, it takes some investigation, but the sources say the rewards are worth it.
Okay, so our sandwich is assembled. Fillings are in place. What now? Where do we send this thing?
They give a specific address. The Department of the Treasury's remittance office in DC.
The Treasury Department,
Uh-huh.
not the IRS.
Right.
Interesting. Why the Treasury?
They don't say explicitly, but maybe they see the Treasury as the ultimate source of the credit. By sending it there, you might bypass the IRS bureaucracy.
Go straight to the top.
That's the idea.
Okay, so we send our W-4 sandwich by registered mail, and then what? We just sit back and wait for a big check.
Not quite. They say it takes time, wins, maybe even months, and it's no guarantee. Might reject your claim, ask for more docs, or even audit you.
So it's a gamble.
Yeah, they're upfront about the risks.
Right.
This is complex, and the outcome's not guaranteed.
Okay, but let's say the IRS does audit the company. What happens then?
So the IRS decides to audit the company. What happens next?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. It's getting real now.
Right. So the sources say the audit itself can be really revealing.
Okay.
They claim the IRS is going to go through the company's books with a fine-tooth comb, looking for any sign of unreported income or like misuse of credit linked to social security numbers.
So it's like we're forcing them to show their hand.
Exact.
Hopefully uncover some shady stuff.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
They say this scrutiny puts pressure on the company to settle with you.
To avoid further scrutiny.
Right. And potential penalties.
Makes sense. What if the company says they did nothing wrong, that they paid all their taxes?
Well, they might try to defend themselves.
Right.
But sources say the burden of proof is on the company.
Okay.
If they can't prove they didn't misuse your credit, the IRS has to side with you.
So it's like a legal battle.
Yeah.
We present our case, they present theirs, and the IRS is the judge.
That's a good analogy.
Okay, but let's be real here. We're talking about going up against big corporations and government agencies with their fancy lawyers and accountants.
Mhm.
What are the chances an average person can actually win this fight?
Well, the sources argue the playing field is more level than you think.
Okay.
They say the IRS has to follow very specific rules and procedures.
Okay.
And if you follow those rules perfectly and you've got all your ducks in a row, your chances are actually pretty good.
So it's not about who has the most money or the best lawyers. It's about who has the better argument and the better evidence.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. But let's say we win. How do we actually get the money? Does the IRS like send a SWAT team to seize the company's assets and deliver a big bag of cash?
Not quite. It's a bit more subtle than that.
Okay.
They say once the IRS figures out how much credit you're owed, they'll contact the company and demand payment.
Okay.
If the company refuses to pay, the IRS can use other methods to collect, like license, levies, even criminal prosecution.
So the IRS is our muscle in this scenario.
In a way. Interesting.
What if the company tries to fight back, like sue us or threaten us to drop the claim?
They admit that companies retaliate,
Okay.
but they see that as a sign of weakness.
Really?
Yeah. Losing.
So they're just
Exactly.
so we need to stand our ground.
Yeah. Stay strong, stay focused. Legal arguments.
Okay. But they also talk about this W-4 process being used for more than just getting money back.
Right.
They mentioned things like holding public officials accountable and exposing corruption. Okay.
And holds responsible accountable, whether it's corporate execs, government officials, even judges.
So it's not just about personal gain. It's about making a difference in the world.
That's the big picture idea. They believe that by empowering people with this knowledge, it can lead to positive change.
Okay. I like. Okay, so we're diving into this whole W-4 thing.
Right.
So they're just trying to bully us into backing days.
Exactly.
Right.
It's presented as a potential path, not a guaranteed solution.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've broken down the steps, looked at the legal arguments, and even imagined ourselves facing off against the IRS and corporate. It has. So what's the bottom line for our listeners?
The bottom line is knowledge is power. By understanding the system, you might be able to use it to your advantage. The W-4 sandwich process is one tool for doing that. It's complex and potentially risky, but worth considering if you're willing to put in the time.
So it's not a quick fix, but it could be a path to financial empowerment.
Exactly. Even if you don't use the W-4 process, the knowledge you gain can be valuable in navigating the financial world.
Great insights. Mother, may I CUP? I'm definitely feeling more informed and maybe a little bit rebellious.
That's here.
I might just have to try building my own W-4 sandwich.
Go for it.
And to our listeners, we encourage you to do your own research, explore these ideas, and decide if the W-4 sandwich process is right for you.
Remember, the financial world is full of hidden rules, and it's up to each of us to learn how to navigate them and create our own financial destinies.
That's all for this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay empowered.
Mother man, CUP. Ah, shit's great. Fucking. Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Don't get any on you.